Thank you very much for the kind welcome, and thanks particularly to Nicola Turing and others in the Turing family for inviting me here through the Trust to be with you today. I think one of your themes today is disruption. I apologise if I have disrupted what you had planned by my late arrival and probably quite speedy departure. There's a few different things going on just now, but I think what I want to do really is really just, as has been mentioned, emphasise the importance to the Scottish Government of the work that we do, not just in Malawi, but in the 4 countries that we work in international development, and the fact that we are genuinely very pleased indeed to have the opportunity to provide funding. In 2016, we provided funding to the Turing Trust under our small grants programme for their Improving ICT Skills in Rural Malawi, powered by Renewable Energy project, which I believe is going very well. And as was mentioned, we have connections with a number of countries, but our connection with Malawi is particularly venerable and particularly developed, so it's always a great pleasure to see new ways in which that relationship can be built on for the future. So firstly, I'd like to take a minute to talk about the Scottish Government's new international development strategy, Global Citizenship, Scotland's International Development Strategy, which is its unimaginative title. And I'll then try and take a minute to talk about aspects of development, appropriateness, affordability, maintainability and innovation that we believe are important when introducing technology into a developing country. Now, as I alluded to, Scotland's tradition of humanitarian work overseas goes back considerably into our history. We've always, I hope, been an outward-looking nation, embracing the world beyond our borders, and I think it's fair to say that Scotland has produced very significant numbers of passionate and articulate individuals, including scientists and engineers, who've operated and continue to operate within a real vibrant civil society, making a huge difference. Now, our international development work began more formally in 2005 when the then First Minister signed a cooperation agreement with the Government of Malawi. And since then, our International Development Fund has grown to £10 million per annum. Now, I say that conscious of the fact that compared to many of the world's independent states, that's not a large sum in the global scheme of things, but it is significant. Although international development is not formally part of the constitutional settlement for Scotland, we're not funded in that sense to do it. We have, through various governments of different political colours, I think, come to a consensus that it's something we should do. It's something that in one shape or form Scotland has always done, and it's something that we should make a commitment to long term. So last year we launched a new dynamic international development strategy that brings greater focus and direction to our international development work. And it recognises recent developments in international theory and practice, such as the new UN Global Goals, which underpin which came into effect over 1 year ago and which will underpin all of our international development work between now and 2030. Now, I believe that the new global goals offer much more scope than their predecessors to end poverty and inequality and to ensure that no one is left behind. And I would urge everyone present here to consider them as they develop new technologies in the future. We've also refreshed our policies to reflect the latest thinking in international development practice by aligning them with the UN Global Goals and by hardwiring principles of transparency and good governance into all Scottish Government-funded initiatives. In working to the spirit of the Global Goals, we will concentrate our efforts as a government on 4 distinct priorities. Firstly, to encourage new and historic relationships with the developing world. Secondly, to empower our partner countries and increase their capacity for development. Thirdly, to engage the people of Scotland across all levels of society in the process of achieving global sustainable development. And finally, to enhance our global citizenship by showing leadership on tackling poverty and injustice at home and overseas. And perhaps the last couple of those points are particularly relevant to Scotland in that I think I always hesitate to congratulate myself, ourselves collectively, that's a very Scottish characteristic. I think we can congratulate ourselves in Scotland that one of the things that makes our relationship, for instance, with Malawi, I hope, work, is the fact that that relationship is based on not merely governments and agencies doing things in Africa, but based on the fact that those agencies and that government activity is backed up by communities, by churches, by organisations, by individuals, the length and breadth of Scotland. So, making technology available, for example, computers or mobile phones to the most vulnerable can assist in improving their governments, increasing their economic standing, encouraging learning and even saving lives through the provision of healthcare and health information. Many of the projects funded from our International Development Fund use old and new technologies to assist some of the most vulnerable people and communities in the world to lift themselves out of poverty and to make a better future for themselves and for their children. For example, in 2012, we funded an innovative project through 1 billion, which helped over 30,000 Malawian pupils to learn maths through the medium of Chichewa using interactive apps on iPads. Now, representing an islands constituency, as I do, I represent the Western Isles, I have a keen interest in how technology can be used to better the lives of those living and working in remote, hard-to-reach areas. I don't mean to draw too much of a comparison in terms of the problems that people face in rural Scotland and rural Africa, but I did notice on my trip to Malawi last year that there were some points of comparison when it comes to the challenges in terms of connectivity faced by many rural Malawians in relation to technology, internet access, mobile phone coverage. And it would be interesting to see if any of the innovations used in the developing world have a use in perhaps a Scottish rural context. I say that with a caveat, which is that the work we do in Africa, we do for the benefit of Africa and in the Malawian national interest. I think that's important to stress that that's the focus of our activities. But I think the fact that there is a relationship there means that we can learn at the Scottish end from all this activity as well. Now, I don't probably need to tell anyone here or convince anyone here that the use of appropriate technologies has the capacity to make really major life-changing differences to many of the world's most vulnerable people and communities. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the considerations that we believe are necessary when introducing technologies, whether they be old or new, into developing countries. Now, I mentioned the use of appropriate technology. The Scottish Government would always encourage anyone working in our partner countries to ensure that they have fully researched the problems that they seek to alleviate. We would expect them to have carried out a comprehensive analysis to ensure that the proposal meets actual needs and will work on the ground. It is, I'm sure you're aware, not completely unheard of for the kindly donation of a laptop to be made to a rural school with no access to either electricity or the internet. And appropriate also means considering whether there is any current technology that can do the job required. For example, due to issues with connectivity, one of our projects in Zambia now uses a high-frequency digital radio for contacting the largest of their hard-to-reach clinics. And this facility allows the health clinic to receive vital information from a hospital, which reduces delays and can save lives in emergencies. Consideration should, as you know, also be given to how much the proposed technology will cost and whether it will be affordable to the intended beneficiaries. Affordability covers not only the actual cost, but also how payment can be made. For example, in Malawi, the Scottish Government funded Community Energy Malawi and their sell solar lamps, funded Community Energy Malawi to sell solar lamps and fuel-efficient stoves to those on low incomes. Now, payment can be made in instalments, which makes the purchase more affordable. The increased availability of low-cost mobile phone technology has brought many benefits to people in developing countries, and the use of low-cost phones with facilities for banking or information sharing has revolutionised the way that some people in rural areas do business. One of our projects in Malawi that allows farmers to share price information is probably relevant there, and that project ensures that farmers get the best possible price for their produce. This not only helps the individual, but also stimulates the local economy. And it's probably one of the most important matters that needs to be considered when introducing technology of any type into a developing country is the issue of maintainability. And unfortunately, it has been known to have been missed in the past. It should be remembered and will be remembered, I'm sure, that you or your organisation will not always be there to sort out any glitches or to make necessary repairs to equipment that may be required. At some point it will be for the individuals or communities involved to take ownership of the equipment and to protect and maintain it for the future. So maintainability has, I think, two important aspects: the technical know-how required to diagnose and repair any problems that may arise, and the governance expertise required to be able to make decisions on the ongoing maintenance and eventual replacement of equipment and how to raise the finances needed for that. And stakeholder analysis should, I think, also consider whether or not the person or community receiving the technology has the necessary literacy, numeracy, technical skills, governance, financial skills required to successfully maintain the equipment in the future, and to see what we can do to help on any of those fronts where we can. And if there are limitations of that kind, then obviously we all want to put in place training to ensure that by the time our organisations hand over the equipment, that the beneficiary is in a position to make the best use of them. And that's particularly important with regards to meeting the future maintenance costs. Unfortunately, the world is, as you know, littered with solar panels and other equipment that have fallen into disuse for want of a fuse or for some other minor repair. And I'm not, you'll be pleased to know, about to lecture a room of technology experts and academics on the best way to address that, or the best way to look at the related question of innovation. However, I will suggest that when installing new technologies, that we all of us remain open to new uses for that technology or equipment. The Scottish Government funded a project in India that used mobile phone technology to allow people to register and track complaints at a district level about local services. However, once the system was up and running, the local district saw this as a useful tool to enable management to monitor and supervise service delivery in their area of responsibility, and this improved the accountability and transparency of the district government itself. So what you're doing in the field of technology has, I think, probably got knock-on implications for the good in another area that we often talk about when we talk about international development, which is about good governance and about building up capacity. So it's been a pleasure to speak briefly to you today about the government's new international development strategy and about briefly my thoughts on the use of technology in the developing world. I'm happy to take a couple of questions, but I just want to conclude by saying that I firmly believe that Scotland and the technological experts gathered here today are capable of playing a vital and distinctive role in the challenges that are faced by our world today, and making a real difference to the lives of some of the world's most vulnerable people and some of the countries in the world which we need and should prioritise our work with in the future. So thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to take some questions. Apologies again for the brief nature of my visit, but I hope you have a very successful event. Thank you.